Good day, students. I hope there's not too much interference today. This is the third lecture on the respiratory PowerPoint, the first respiratory PowerPoint. So we have done the osteology, we have done the intercostal space, and we are going to look at the cardiovascular portion of the thorax in this next slide presentation. So I'm starting with a very general overview of the cardiovascular system. First off, this is just an open chest. Here you can see that the anterior chest wall has been taken away. And I'm just going to try and get a marker here. So just bear with me. Okay, so the anterior chest wall has been taken away. And here you can see the heart in situ and both lungs, and the picture is actually about the phrenic nerve. But what I want to show you is these structures here. This is the heart inside the fibrous pericardium, and this is the ascending aorta as it is coming from your right ventricle. The ascending aorta then changes to the arch of the aorta at your sternomanubrial angle, and then at the back, as it is going down back into the chest, it becomes the descending aorta again at the second thoracic vertebral level. Fourth thoracic vertebra at the level of the manubriosternal angle. So from our ascending aorta, there's only two arteries branching. That is your right and left coronary arteries. But we cannot see that here because the pericardium is covering those structures. And then from your aortic arch, we have three arteries coming off. The first is your right brachiocephalic arch or trunk. The second is your common carotid, left common carotid, and the third is your left subclavian artery. Those are the three branches of your aortic arch. And then posteriorly we will find the descending aorta. So now I am going to show you a different view. This is about pleural blood supply, but you can ignore the description here. What I want to show you is just the fact that we have, this is now the ascending aorta has been cut away. There's the aortic arch. The heart has been cut away. The lungs is taken away. What we are left with is the aortic arch and then the start of your descending aorta. Now, the descending aorta lies posterior in the chest. There's your vertebra. The vertebra is there. Your descending aorta gives off the small intercostal arteries that supply your intercostal space. And this is what I want to show you from this specific slide. Now, the next picture shows the slide that you have seen already before about the intercostal spaces. Here, we can see that the heart's been taken away. The bigger arteries that comes off the heart has been taken off as well. This is your left common carotid, that's your left subclavian. And here we are looking at the chest wall, anterior chest wall. So think about standing inside the chest. You are sitting on top of the heart and you're looking to the front, because this is the sternum and this is the anterior chest wall arterial supply. What we looked at in the previous picture was the posterior chest wall, or actually the intercostal spaces as they derive in the back. And those arteries are originating from the descending aorta. Now, anterior chest wall, so the front chest wall, also needs to have some kind of blood supply. And what happens is we find that from our subclavian arteries on both sides, we have an internal intercostal or internal thoracic artery. This is this long artery here running from our subclavian that supplies the anterior chest wall, so or let's say the anterior half of the intercostal space. Okay, now one step further. These are two pictures from an atlas just to show you what it actually physically looks like in the cadaver. Here we have our ascending aorta, and we have the brachiocephalic trunk and common carotid there. These are the venous structures. Okay, so this is our superior vena cava as it will be going into our right atrium. This is again a posterior thoracic chest wall, or the back. There's the vertebra. There. These are the posterior intercostal arteries as they are branching off the descending aorta. Okay, so this is the picture of the thoracic aorta that's been dissected away. What is important to recognize here is the first intercostal spaces. Remember, we said that the intercostal spaces posteriorly derive their arteries from the descending aorta. But the descending aorta is not close to the posterior intercostal. It actually starts to form only at the fourth thoracic vertebra, if you remember the level of between T4 and the manubriosternal junction. So these three spaces need to get posterior intercostal arterial supply from another origin. And this actually comes from the superior intercostal artery that originates from the costocervical trunk that originates from the subclavian artery. This is just the venous drainage of that first three spaces. Here we can see superior vena cava, right and left brachiocephalic veins, right internal jugular, right subclavian, and here we see a system called the azygos vein, which we will discuss a bit more in the next lecture, that drains our intercostal spaces and the thoracic wall, and all of this drain into either the brachiocephalic or directly into the superior vena cava and back to the heart. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and we will definitely talk about it again when we are actually looking at the thorax and chest tomorrow.